Episode 8 starts off with Princess Renner and Zanuck talking about the Holy Kingdom. Their representative visited the kingdom. Zanuck originally wanted to discuss some countermeasures with them, but Renner strongly insisted that they should stand by their foreign policy. She tells him that he was the one who decided not to meet with them, saying there was nothing he could do to help against an enemy like Jaldabaoth, who wasn't even human. Zanuck comments on the amount of paperwork that has piled up due to the little problems they couldn't respond to immediately, and tells her that the Holy Kingdom asked the Sorcerer Kingdom for help since they refused their request for aid. In the end, the Sorcerer Kingdom defeated Jaldabaoth and even sent an enormous amount of relief supplies. The reputation of the Sorcerer Kingdom only continues to grow. Renner says that, but didn't you give them permission to travel through the kingdom to deliver those supplies? He asks, how could I refuse? He requested the right to impose import taxes and charge fees for use of their merchants and warehouses. The Sorcerer Kingdom accepted every request without any resistance. They even said that they were willing to sell some of their wares within their country. They're so generous it's disturbing. Renner tells him that he's thinking too negatively. He says, no, I'm sure this is another one of their plots. Hasn't the Empire already become a vassal state due to their ploys? Renner then asks, why don't we just pledge to become a vassal state ourselves? Zanuck says maybe if they could control their nobles like the Empire. The first thing that would happen if you did that would be a rebellion. She tells him that that wouldn't happen. While Zanuck is thinking to himself, Renner says that it would be difficult to bring Marquis Raven back to the royal capital. She heard that his will was crushed by the war with the Empire, and asks when will he ascend to the throne, because she'd like for him to fulfill his promise to her soon. He tells her that father is currently trying to find the right time to pass him the throne. Her wish will come true soon. We then see Philip drinking and asking himself why won't things go his way. Delvey and Brockerlin start a conversation with him. The three of them are sitting down and make a toast to Philip. As they clank glasses, Philip spills some beer on Delvey's jacket. Delvey tells him not to worry, and by the way, something seems to be worrying you lately. Is everything alright? Philip sighs and says that everyone around him has been so useless that they've been dragging him down. While he's saying that, Delvey looks at the stain on his jacket, and you can tell he's ticked off about it. Philip continues his rant, saying that the commoners in his domain don't listen to him, the new head of the prestigious Montserrat family, at all. They'd be rolling in money if they only listened to his words. They're making no effort to raise the cash crops he told them to raise. All they can do is give him excuses, like they're not sure if the crop can be grown in this climate, or that they don't have enough manpower. Delvey nods his head and says that it's natural to get angry at those far more ignorant than yourself. Philip agrees and says that there's too many people in the world that smother those with talent. Delvey says, however, you have a wonderful backer that believes in his talent, Lady Hilma. He's so jealous of him. She's created the perfect gathering place for his faction without asking for anything in return. Philip tells him that it's not his faction alone, though he plans to do away with the outdated method of prioritizing people just because of status and age. Delvey mentions that he's heard that Philip is close to the Sorcerer Kingdom's Prime Minister. He says yeah, he's kept in contact with Lady Albedo through their letters. Delvey leans in and says, so you know of the situation? It seems the Sorcerer Kingdom is producing an enormous amount of food, an amount comparable to Philip's kingdom. Philip says that aren't they a small kingdom with Irantal as their only city? Delvey says, well, he's heard they use the undead to tirelessly cultivate a large amount of farmland. On top of that, they're sending that food as aid to the Holy Kingdom. He's sure of it, since a lot of carts from the Sorcerer Kingdom have been traveling through his lands. The warehouses throughout the kingdom have been packed with food, and that food can be sold within the kingdom for a cheap price. Philip jumps up and says that's unfair, but Delvey tells him to quiet down. Philip says that'll greatly affect the price of the crops being grown in his territory, and says that they have to do something about this. They need to have the Sorcerer Kingdom lower their production of food crops, and comes up with an idea to bring down the hammer of justice on the Sorcerer Kingdom while reaping benefits for his domain and kingdom. 3 birds with one stone, and asks if the two of them have a bit of time there's something that may interest them. It cuts to Albedo doing paperwork, thinking to herself that they've been conquering territories at a good pace, but they really lack the manpower. It would be outrageous for her to ask the Supreme One for help. The last report is on problems encountered during the transport of aid to the Holy Kingdom. We don't see the details, but Albedo is surprised by what the report says. Next, we see Eins, Momonga, and Nabe walking around Irantel. Eins understands why they're doing this, to show the public that he has good relationship with Momo. But the silence is really stifling. However, there isn't really anything he wants to talk to Pandora's actor about, so he decides to talk to Nabe. Eins asks if she's visited the orphanage that was suggested by Yuri. She says not yet, so Eins suggests that they stop by. However, Eins gets a message from Intoma saying that Albedo is requesting his return to Nazareth as soon as possible. In the throne room, Albedo tells him that she's gathered all the floor guardians before him. Eins asks why she's gathered everyone here. She tells him that 4 days ago, the food they sent to the Holy Kingdom was stolen while being transported through the kingdom. Eins asks who the culprit is. Albedo says a noble from the kingdom. That noble used his subordinates to attack their carriage and rob their goods by force. If Eins remembers correctly, weren't the transporting merchants prepared by the Eight Fingers? Their carriages carry the flags of the Sorcerer Kingdom. In other words, the kingdom decided to directly attack the Sorcerer Kingdom? Or perhaps the Eight Fingers have betrayed them. Albedo says no, but Eins thinks to himself that her attitude seems like an employee that has to tell her boss that she's made a terrible mistake. He doesn't remember any of the nobles from the kingdom and wonders what happened. He tells Albedo to just tell him. So Albedo reminds him of their plan to use a foolish noble to take control of the kingdom. He says, right, the one you've been sending letters to? She tells him that that fool of a noble is the one who orchestrated the robbery. Of course, there's a chance that this was the ploy of the kingdom. Eins says, I'm sure you've already checked to see if that was the case. She says, yeah, I have a witness. Hilma is cowering on the ground, while Albedo is telling Eins that she's the one responsible for managing the witless noble. Eins has no clue who she is. Hilma greets him, and she tells him that she didn't know anything. She would never do something that went against his wishes, and says that she has nothing to do with this. Eins gets up and uses Dominate to question Hilma. He says that even if her actions may have directly triggered this result, it would be unfair to blame her for the crime, and says that she's innocent. Albedo says that a superior should take responsibility for the mistake of their subordinate. Hilma says that she never thought he would do something so outrageous. She warned him many times, and she had people watching him. Albedo is about to interject, but Eins stops her and repeats what Albedo said earlier. Those words should be used by a superior to protect their subordinates. It shouldn't be used by another to force the responsibility on someone below them. And asks Albedo who is responsible for taking care of Hilma. Albedo says that would be me. Eins agrees and says that, as her master, should he not be the one ultimately held responsible? Albedo says not at all. There's no way that he would be at fault. Eins silences her and tells Hilma to prepare some new countermeasures and present them to Albedo. That will be her punishment. Eins teleports Hilma back to her place. Some people rush over to check on her, offering her fruit wine to cleanse her mouth. She says that she's fine. They didn't use that on me. She met His Majesty, the Sorcerer King, and that His Majesty is a very reasonable person. She was able to return without any serious punishment because of him, and says that he really is suitable for the position of king. One guy brings up that that's the carrot and the stick. She says that's right. She's done the same thing to others herself, so she understands that. But she never realized how sweet the candy was until she experienced the pain of the whip. She felt like she could trust His Majesty. No, she wanted to trust His Majesty with all her heart. The group comments that they should show their unwavering loyalty as best they can. Back with Eins, Albedo says that she thought they would have to make a drastic change of plans if someone was using the fool of a noble for their own agenda. She decided it would be best to ask for his opinion. Eins asks how much has she explained about the carrot and the stick plan to Alda and the others. She tells him that she hasn't delved into much detail, so he tells her to share the information with everyone. Operation Carrot and the Stick explains their plan to take over the kingdom in its very name. They plan to incite a civil war and peacefully absorb the citizens of the kingdom. Demiurge comments that this idea was originally suggested by a certain individual within the kingdom. It was a wonderful idea that didn't require many modifications. The key to this plan was supposed to be the foolish noble who caused the current problem. Shalltear then asks what the problem is. Didn't the fools start the needed trouble without any effort on their part? Albedo says that the people's dissatisfaction with the current kingdom was supposed to incite a rebellion. She can't believe the nobles decided to challenge the Sorcerer Kingdom instead. Demiurge says that there's a chance that this is a plot of a schemer that surpasses their own expectations. If they move carelessly, they might play straight into the hands of an unknown enemy. This causes Eins to ask if they are sure that Noble didn't move thoughtlessly on his own. Albedo tells him that she can't believe that even an idiot couldn't possibly move that thoughtlessly. Demiurge stops her and says that they can only think of countermeasures against an intellectual, but Eins can even understand the minds of the asinine, and what Eins said is the more probable truth. Albedo asks if it's possible to be that stupid, but all the guardians agree that Eins is right. Colcutus asks Albedo why did she use such a stupid noble in the first place? Could a smarter one not have been used? Albedo tells him that that's not true. They have a few capable nobles that have already come to their side, but they decided to gather all the useless nobles in a faction so that it would be easier to get rid of them at a later time. That causes Colcutus to say that that's a good plan. Then Demiurge asks how should they respond to this matter. These people destroyed the carriages displaying the Sorcerer Kingdom's flag, which represent Eins. What punishment is appropriate? Alda suggests that they kill them. Mahdi agrees, so Albedo says that they should just kill the ones directly involved in the robbery. Shalltear says no, their master is also guilty. The entire kingdom should be punished. Colcutus agrees, so does Albedo. Demiurge brings up that Eins once said, while it is easy to rule with violence, you make many enemies along the way. A desolate kingdom would sully the name Eins Odugan. They should take Eins's words into consideration, but they can't give them too light of a punishment. They will have to temporarily stop or completely abandon the current plan. At the very least, some heavy adjustments will be necessary. Eins asks if this plan has truly failed. Demiurge comes to the conclusion that Eins must have brought the Empire under his control to use the carrot and the stick on an international level. Eins is caught off guard, so he just says that's right. Demiurge says that now that he's received permission from Eins, they should give the kingdom a more devastating punishment. He gave the emperor who quickly pledged themselves the carrot, so the foolish kingdom who went against them should receive the stick. Those two countries will be used to set an example. They will ask everyone in the world whether they want the carrot or the stick. Back at the kingdom, they are starting their royal court meeting. They've gathered to discuss the letter they received from the Sorcerer Kingdom. It says, the people of the kingdom used force to seize the food supplies sent to the Holy Kingdom. The Sorcerer Kingdom considers this action as blatant hostility and is willing to declare war if necessary. The letter is signed by the Sorcerer Kingdom, Baharuth Kingdom, Dragon Kingdom, and Dwarven Kingdom. The seals of the Holy Kingdom and the equally powerful one called Faceless, who controls the temples, are also present. The king asks Zanak if it's possible that this matter was caused by the meddling of a third party in order to destroy their relationship with the Sorcerer Kingdom. Zanak says that there is a possibility that someone's hand was involved, but it's ultimately the fault of the kingdom. The king asks how much has he investigated. Zanak says that they've already confirmed the culprit behind it. One minister says that he can't imagine a noble of their kingdom doing something so stupid. Isn't this a ploy of the Sorcerer Kingdom? Sonok brings up that if that's the case, it's likely he would be silenced. They'll have to summon Philip here as soon as possible, and ask if they should use his head to begin their negotiations with the Sorcerer Kingdom. The king asks if he doesn't mind sacrificing the life of an innocent noble to accomplish that. Is that something the future king should say? Sonok says, I know, however, he witnessed the tragedy of the Kot's plains with his own eyes. Even after that, do you still plan to fight against him? Sonok is against it. Many may call this decision weak and cowardly, but he strongly believes that they should avoid fighting the Sorcerer Kingdom, even if it means offering the life of an innocent noble. A minister stands up and suggests that they submit themselves as a vassal state like the Baharuth Kingdom. The king says that that's one thing they cannot do. It would be an insult to all the lives lost while protecting this kingdom. The king tells Zanuck that he's come up with a good idea, but they're interrupted by a soldier telling them that a herald of the Sorcerer Kingdom has arrived. Prime Minister Albedo will soon arrive in the royal capital. The king says that he will meet her and to prepare the throne room immediately. The credits play, but there's an after-credit scene. Albedo enters the throne room, and the king asks what brings her here today. She tells him that she's here in regard to the matter of the goods for the Holy Kingdom being stolen by a noble of their kingdom. The king stands up and says, first, I would like to apologize for the actions of that citizen, and is it possible to gain forgiveness with his head alone? Some personal thoughts. One thing that doesn't make sense is the king calling Philip an innocent noble. Like, he stole the goods, so he's no longer innocent. But I'm looking forward to next week, because of course they ended it on a cliffhanger, so I have to know, what's gonna happen. A good episode, but that's about it. So yeah.